You don't belong in this cabin. Not someone like you. The words came sharp and deliberate, slicing through the hush of the first-class cabin like a blade. Derek Walsh, the lead flight attendant of Globejet Flight 1189, stood firm at the entry to row 1A, his fingers tightening around the boarding pass he had just ripped in half. He didn't whisper it. He didn't say it in code. He made sure everyone could hear. The man he was speaking to, Malik Jackson, paused. Dressed in a navy blazer over a crisp white shirt and charcoal gray slacks, Malik looked every inch the seasoned executive, except to the eyes trained to see only skin. He stood still, unblinking, his left hand clutching the handle of a black leather carry-on, his right now empty where the ticket had just been. Passengers began to murmur. "I told you," sneered a voice behind Derek. Victor Lang, a heavy-set white man in a tailored pinstripe suit, leaned forward in his seat with a smirk playing on his lips. "He's no VIP. He probably wandered up here by mistake." Malik spoke quietly, each word clear. "My name is Malik Jackson. I hold a confirmed seat in 1A. I'm a Globejet Platinum Circle member, and I am boarding in accordance with my itinerary." Victor gave a short, dismissive laugh. "That's cute. Really is." Across the aisle, Serena Holt, platinum blonde influencer and known provocateur, lifted her phone and hit record. "Let's capture this moment. Folks," she purred to her followers. "This guy's trying to sneak his way into first like we can't tell." She turned the lens on Malik. "Smile for TikTok." Derek stepped forward and, with performative authority, tossed the shredded ticket to the carpeted floor. "Sir, we've asked you to leave. You're holding up boarding." A man in row 2 called out. "Yeah, get out of here. Man, some of us actually paid to be here." Malik looked around the cabin slowly. A dozen passengers in suits and designer outfits. No one looked like him, not in color, not in expression. He bent down, picked up the torn ticket, and stood. "You're making a grave mistake." "Oh no," Serena cooed. "He's pulling the righteous card. Somebody cue the sad music." Before Malik could respond, another passenger accidentally bumped into him. Miles Carver, a thin man with a golfer's tan and a smug tilt to his chin, a half-full glass of red wine in his hand, tilted, just slightly. A splash of deep burgundy stained Malik's jacket near the collarbone. "Oops," Miles said casually. "Wrong wine for the wrong suit." "I guess." Malik closed his eyes for half a second, then opened them. The burn of the stain was familiar, like the lies they once printed about him in the Tribune when his former business partner tried to frame him. They tried to bury him, but he built Cyber Peak from that dirt, and here they were again, trying. Another woman's voice chimed in now. Elise Vaughn, high-powered lawyer and rumored Globejet legal consultant, pointed with her manicured finger. "You know what this looks like? A man pretending to be someone he's not. He's probably a fraud. Impersonating a passenger is a federal crime. Security will be notified," Derek added, his voice louder now. A ripple of laughter filled the cabin. Someone actually clapped. Malik slowly pulled out a cloth napkin and dabbed at the stain, jaw tight, movements slow and deliberate. He didn't speak. Not yet. Near the back of the cabin, a woman dressed as a passenger subtly raised her magazine, lowering it just enough for her eyes to meet his. Zoe Kim, corporate counsel for Cyber Peak, embedded here for this exact possibility. She gave a nearly imperceptible nod. "Stay the course." At the galley, Tanya Brooks, an actual flight attendant, glanced between Derek and Malik, her face stiff. Then, without a word, she stepped forward, handed Malik another napkin. Inside it, inked faintly in her tiny handwriting, "I'm with you. In the jet bridge." Omar Reza, a young airport technician wearing a Globejet badge, leaned slightly against the wall, pretending to scroll his phone. But he wasn't just waiting. He was watching, recording, just as Jamal Carter was. 3 rows behind Serena, a small pen camera clipped to his collar. Blinking red, Malik's voice dropped to a whisper as he adjusted the knot on his tie. "Jamal," he said, glancing down toward his lapel. "Now." Jamal nodded once. His fingers tapped his phone discreetly. In seconds, the audio from Malik's tie pin was transmitted. Victor's laugh, Derek's comment, Elise's threat. Zoe's phone buzzed. She read the transcript and replied with a single word. "Posted." In the corner of the cabin, Serena froze mid-giggle. Her screen refreshed with a notification. "You've been tagged in a video, #GlobeJetDisgrace." Victor's smile faltered. Derek's stance changed, just slightly, but it was too late. Malik turned toward the camera Jamal now held at chest level. "There are moments in life," he said clearly, "when silence is consent. I won't be silent. Not when dignity is stripped for entertainment." He straightened, voice strong. "For anyone who's ever been humiliated just for being you, record it, share it, show them you're not alone." He looked at the lens as if staring straight into every household in America. "And if you believe that justice doesn't wait, follow this story. The truth is about to fly higher than any airline ever dared. In the back." Tanya's breath caught. Omar's hand curled into a fist. Serena's face drained of color. Outside the cabin, a flight supervisor received a text from corporate PR: "Pull all Serena Holt posts now." But the fire had started. And Malik, the man they thought they could eject in silence, had just struck the first match. Have you ever been humiliated just for being yourself? Malik was. But instead of backing down, he pressed record. If you've faced moments like his, share this video, subscribe for the full story, and leave a comment below. This fight for dignity is just beginning. The cabin door had just closed when the next blow landed, not from a passenger, but from authority. Claire Morgan, Director of Operations for GlobeJet's flagship terminal, stormed onto the plane with a stride sharpened by high heels and a taste for headlines. Her badge swung against her chest as she raised her voice. "This man is a security concern," she barked, pointing straight at Malik. "He's been flagged for erratic behavior. We're conducting an immediate reassessment of his presence on this flight." The sudden shift in tone sent whispers through the cabin like ripples across water. Serena Holt was already live again, giggling into her phone. "Turns out our little CEO cosplay act is also unstable. Y'all, this is wild." The screen behind her captured Malik's once pristine blazer, now smeared with wine, with her new caption flashing #FakeCEO, #CaughtinTheAct. She tagged the video exclusive from GlobeJet First Class and let the comments roll in like fuel to fire. Victor clapped mockingly. "Told you he was no one." Derek gave a theatrical sigh and grabbed Malik's elbow. "Let's try this again. Take your seat in the rear. You're not flying with the Platinum Circle today." Serena turned her phone back toward Malik, eyes gleaming. "Smile for the fraud squad." The chant started slow. First a cough, then a whisper, then a rising chorus from passengers in suits and silk scarves. Fraud, fraud, fraud. The word bounced off the leather seats like a drumbeat of condemnation. Elise Vaughn, never one to miss a legal performance, stood now, waving a folded sheet of paper like a declaration of war. "You're lucky I don't sue you for impersonation and harassment, Mr. Jackson," she sneered. "Because right now, you are trespassing on federal property." Malik didn't blink, not when Miles kicked his briefcase open, sending carefully arranged documents scattering like dry leaves, not when another passenger muttered, "Throw him off already," not even when Claire smiled darkly and added, "You're now officially banned from flying with GlobeJet." He simply knelt to gather his papers, one by one, his voice even but low. Everything you're doing is illegal, and it's being recorded. Elise's words rang louder in his head than in the cabin. They echoed past battles, the defamation lawsuits he once faced from a rival hedge firm when they tried to crush his name. But he had learned in those days to keep his records airtight, his allies close, and his silence temporary. And here he was again, on stage, surrounded by hostile players, but this time holding all the footage, all the receipts, and a story too powerful to suppress. Near the service station, Tanya Brooks was trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of what she'd just heard, standing beside the beverage cart. She had overheard Claire leaning toward Victor moments before, whispering words meant for no one else. He can't make it to that conference. Our client was very clear. Tanya didn't know who the client was, but she understood now. This wasn't spontaneous bigotry. It was coordinated. A planned takedown. She clicked her pen, quietly activating the microphone she kept in emergencies. Her hand never left the cart, but her body was tilted just enough to capture it all. Claire's voice, Victor's chuckle, Elise's affirmation. She slipped the small recorder into a service napkin and made her way down the aisle, dropping it onto Jamal's tray as if it were just another pack of salted almonds. Jamal, without missing a beat, tucked it into his coat and nodded once at Malik. The signal was clear. Outside the cabin, Omar Reza was glued to his phone. Malik's luggage had been flagged earlier, lost in transfer, but Omar had quietly pulled it from the holding bay. Now he texted Malik just one word: secured. Malik turned slightly, his lips tightening, as he heard his phone buzz in his jacket, in his tie clip. The tiny embedded mic was already streaming, Derek's insults, Claire's orders, and now Tanya's critical recording. Every second was being beamed to Zoe Kim, seated near the back in civilian clothes. She opened her laptop discreetly, added Tanya's file to the clip Jamal had sent earlier, and hit publish. The post appeared first on X, with the caption, "This is how Globejet treats a black CEO. Recorded, verified, unedited. Hashtag Globejet fraud." Within seconds, it exploded. Screens lit up across the aircraft as phones pinged, passengers gasping mid-scroll. On Zoe's dashboard, the view count leapt from 20,000 to 500,000 in under 5 minutes. Screenshots of Serena's mocking clips were paired side by side with Derek's shredded ticket. A short snippet showed Claire's voice whispering about the client. The comment section caught fire. Sue them. Racism in 4K? He warned them. Delete that, Serena shrieked suddenly, her voice cracking as she lunged toward Jamal, who simply raised an eyebrow and continued filming. Claire spun around to Derek. Take their phones. Confiscate every single one. But it was too late. The image of Malik, shoulders squared, wine-stained, surrounded by accusation but unbroken, was now the front page of the internet. For years, Malik had stayed away from the spotlight. He built his firm in silence, letting results speak where headlines had once tried to ruin him. But now, the world was watching. The same voice that had once told him to sit at the back now echoed in millions of living rooms, and the audience was not amused. Across the aisle, Victor looked toward his own phone, then back at Malik, his smirk gone. "What? What is this?" he muttered. Malik turned, calm and clear. "It's the truth. You just helped me broadcast it." As Serena frantically tried to wipe her trending post, and Elise hissed into her phone trying to reach legal, Malik sat down quietly in the seat they'd tried to ban him from. Tanya walked past, her lips barely parting. 3 million views now, she whispered, and rising. Claire slammed her palm on the armrest. "Shut this down now." But the fire wasn't just in the cabin, it was global. The hiss of the cabin door reopening cut through the murmur like a guillotine. Two uniformed security officers stepped aboard with brisk authority, flanked by Claire Morgan, who now wielded her position like a weapon in full view of a swelling crowd. Her voice rang out with false urgency. "That man is a danger to this flight. Remove him immediately." She jabbed her manicured finger toward Malik as though naming a threat. Not a man. The officers moved forward. Derek Walsh puffed his chest and declared, "We warned you, Mr. Jackson. You've left us no choice." Victor Lang, still sprawled luxuriously in his seat, leaned to the aisle and lifted a chilled bottle of water. "Here," he said with mock generosity, unscrewing the cap. Then, without warning, he flung the contents straight at Malik's face. "Cool off. CEO." The splash stunned the cabin. Gasps shot up from all sides. Malik stood still, face dripping, his hands motionless at his sides. The humiliation wasn't just physical. It was calculated, precise, and meant to break him. But it didn't. Malik slowly raised his chin, letting the cold water trail down his neck, his expression unreadable. "You should thank me," Victor added, grinning. "Washed off that wine stain. Now you look clean enough for Coach." Serena Holt had turned the moment into content. Her phone raised again, her voice chirpy as always. "And here's what happens when you fake being a CEO. Folks, lesson of the day." Her live stream on YouTube already had 47,000 viewers watching in real time. "Say cheese." Malik. Another voice rang out. "Elise Vaughn." She stepped down the aisle with legal fury in every motion. "This man is unlawfully in possession of Globejet materials," she barked. Then, without warning, she grabbed Malik's briefcase from beside his seat and tossed it to Miles Carver, who caught it and, with a theatrical scoff, dumped its contents into a nearby service cart. Papers, a tablet, business cards, all slid into a heap. Someone in row 4 laughed. "Mr. Jackson," Claire declared with smug satisfaction, "you are hereby barred from all Globejet services, effective immediately." The officers took Malik's arms. Passengers began clapping, some uncertain, others openly entertained, and in the back, a CNN field reporter raised her camera just a little higher. She had arrived at the gate 10 minutes earlier after seeing the viral clips. Now, her mic was on. Her feed was live. As Malik was marched toward the front of the plane, still soaked, blazer stained, documents scattered. He turned his head slightly. His voice cut through the clapping like steel. "You're dragging out a man with more legal leverage in this moment than anyone in this cabin can comprehend." "Oh, please," Elise muttered. "Save it for your next YouTube apology tour." But Malik wasn't finished. As they reached the jet bridge, he dug his right hand into his pocket and pulled out a micro memory card the size of a thumbnail. With a sudden motion, he tossed it toward a figure waiting just outside the plane. Omar Reza, still pretending to check boarding procedures, caught it one-handed, slid it into his phone, and walked quickly down the terminal. No one noticed. No one except Jamal Carter. Jamal was already preparing the upload. The memory card wasn't just video. It was a dossier, a carefully curated folder of text message screenshots, voice memos, and emails. At the center of it all, a thread linking Claire Morgan, Victor Lang, and a shadowy corporate client that had specifically requested Malik be delayed or disqualified from speaking at the International Legal Innovation Summit happening that same day in Chicago. They had tried to destroy his credibility before he could expose unethical hedge fund structures. They just hadn't expected him to be 5 moves ahead. By the time Malik reached the terminal, his phone buzzed again. Zoe's message was short. "It's live." Jamal's post hit X, TikTok, and YouTube simultaneously. The title read, "They tried to bury a CEO. He had receipts." The clip began with the confrontation in the cabin. Then cut to Tanya's recording of Claire whispering, "Our client can't have him at that summit." Then to emails, Victor confirming payment, Elise coordinating legal threats. Overlaid were timestamps, verification tags, and Zoe's legal watermark. Within 10 minutes, the post had reached 10 million views. Hashtags trended globally, hashtag GlobeJet scandal, hashtag CEO exposed them, hashtag corporate racism live. Screens across the terminal lit up as passengers turned their attention to the storm brewing online. CNN picked up the footage. So did MSNBC. The image of Malik, soaked, calm, and walking down the jet bridge, was frozen across headlines, CEO targeted on flight systemic bias or corporate plot. Victor was the first to notice the shift. Still seated in first class, he saw the post on his feed. No, he muttered, his eyes scanning the evidence. Serena's live stream comments turned brutal. "You're finished." One user typed, "You messed with the wrong one." Back in the press room at GlobeJet's corporate HQ, the crisis line lit up. Shareholders were calling, employees were forwarding the videos, and on one screen, a flashing red alert stock price down 35% and falling. Malik stood calmly at the gate's edge, wiping the last drops of water from his face with the same napkin Tanya had given him earlier. A passing teenager handed him a phone. "Sir, they're showing this on CNN right now. The whole thing." Malik took a breath and replied simply, "Good." His phone buzzed once more. "Zoe, you're trending worldwide." Malik texted back 2 words. "Time strikes. Outside." The terminal seemed to pause as the impact began to register. GlobeJet's illusion of exclusivity, of control, of power. It was fracturing in real time. And the man they had tried to drag off in silence had just made their conspiracy echo through every newsroom in America. The storm didn't wait. Within an hour, the video of Malik's ejection had spread like an electrical fire through the veins of the internet, igniting outrage, disbelief, and a flood of calls to GlobeJet's corporate headquarters in Manhattan, in the 22nd floor boardroom overlooking the Hudson River. Panic was no longer a murmur. It was a roar. CEO Edward Crane stood frozen in front of the wall of monitors, displaying the airline's real-time metric stock plunging 51%. 7 major advertisers had pulled sponsorships, legal inquiries from state regulators had doubled, and cancellations flooded in like a breached dam. "Who the hell is Malik Jackson?" he barked, eyes darting between the screen and his paralyzed staff. Claire Morgan, no longer smug, looked smaller in her seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I didn't know who he was," she muttered. "Victor told me he was a plant, someone hired to cause a scene." Edward whipped around. "Victor Lang is a private investor, not a policy advisor. You put a man in handcuffs mid-flight, and now we're at DEFCON 1 because a damn TikTok lawyer went viral." Victor appeared on one of the screens, patching in via video call from his personal yacht. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a defensive posture and a tremor in his voice. "We were protecting a client's interest," he said. Malik had to be stopped before reaching that summit. If his firm exposed those hedge agreements, Edward cut him off. "You made that our problem." "Now we're one headline away from a federal inquiry," Claire interjected. "We can say the videos were faked. Deepfakes are common now." A snort came from the far end of the table. CFO Margot Lynn, glasses perched on her nose. "There are timestamps, digital signatures, multiple camera angles, 2 news outlets confirming the footage. We try that. We'll lose our legal standing and our reputation." The room fell into tense silence. Then Edward whispered, more to himself than to anyone's cyberpeak, "Why does that name sound familiar?" He pulled up the firm's public profile. As the screen refreshed, the room seemed to exhale in dread. CyberPeak Strategic Consulting. Global leader in legal oversight, compliance risk auditing, and Corporate Accountability Enforcement, founder and CEO Malik D. Jackson. Edward's voice was hollow. He's not just some victim. He's the guy we pay 6 figures a quarter to ensure we're not sued into the Stone Age. He leaned on the conference table, forehead creasing. We publicly ejected our own legal compliance advisor. On video, while laughing, in the corner. General Counsel Amanda Weiss broke the silence. You should see this. She turned her laptop toward the room. On her screen was a secure email from CyberPeak's legal division. Subject line: Notice of Emergency Injunction and Operational Hold. Federal Compliance Act 412. Attached was a court-stamped order from the U.S. District Court of New York. GlobeJet's operations were under suspension review, effective immediately. CyberPeak had the right, via a previously signed legal contingency clause, to recommend a halt to all domestic flights if systemic discrimination was proven to affect operational integrity. Edward read the words aloud, but the meaning sank in before he reached the final sentence. He can ground us, he said, eyes wide, one man, one document, and he can ground every flight in our system. Claire stood. He won't go that far. It would cost him too. But the room ignored her. Her voice, once icy and commanding, had lost all its weight. Downstairs, the GlobeJet press team was scrambling to hold the narrative, but they were already 5 headlines behind. CNN had just switched to full-day coverage, with anchor Rachel Lynn. No relation to Margot breaking news that federal transportation regulators had opened a preliminary probe into racial bias within airline security procedures. Citing the Malik Jackson video as the catalyst, screens across America showed side-by-side comparisons, Malik's calm dignity versus Claire's scowl and Derek's violence. The contrast was too stark to dismiss. Meanwhile, in a quiet section of Terminal C, Malik stood beside a charger station, blazer folded over his arm, shirt damp but tucked, watching the world implode around his enemies with a silence born not from shock, but calculation. Zoe Kim stood beside him, scrolling through reactions from regulators and legal observers. 2 senators just retweeted the dossier. She said, NAACP's Legal Defense Fund is offering full support, and Sky News is doing a primetime special on institutional bias in corporate aviation. We couldn't have asked for better timing. Malik didn't smile. Not yet. He simply opened his phone and typed a single email addressed to Edward Crane and GlobeJet's board. Subject: you have 30 minutes. Body: hold a press conference. Fire the responsible parties, or I pull the federal trigger and bury this airline under its own contracts. He hit send. Edward read the email at the boardroom table. He didn't say a word at first. Then he walked to the window, gazed down at the city as though it could answer him. Finally, he turned. Schedule the damn press conference in 30 minutes. Make sure security's on site and clear the damn room of Claire, Derek, and anyone else he names in Terminal C. Malik's phone buzzed with Zoe's final text. Court's ready. Just say the word. Malik looked out past the window toward the runway, where jets taxied with corporate logos that had once held weight, now paper-thin under scrutiny. He didn't say much, just send it, and like that. An airline built on arrogance began to descend. The press conference began with trembling hands and forced smiles, under the harsh lights of Terminal C's media atrium. GlobeJet's executive team stood behind a podium flanked by flags and nervous interns. Cameras rolled. Microphones crowded the front row like weapons. Reporters from CNN, MSNBC, Reuters, and a half-dozen aviation watchdogs filled the floor. At center stage stood CEO Edward Crane, jaw tight, palms damp, as he cleared his throat and tried to steady his voice. We are here today to address the unfortunate incident involving Mr. Malik Jackson. He didn't get further. The double doors at the side of the room swung open with a quiet finality, and Malik stepped in. He didn't need to announce himself. Every lens swiveled toward him. The man they tried to drag off an airplane like cargo now walked with the dignity of a verdict returned. His blazer had been replaced with a crisp, dry jacket. His shirt, though stained at the collar, was ironed and tucked. He carried no briefcase, no notes, just presence. Zoe Kim flanked him. Jamal Carter followed with a mounted camera, already live on YouTube and X. Tanya Brooks stood near the back, arms crossed, chin lifted. Omar Reza quietly locked the doors behind them. Edward's mouth opened, then closed. Claire Morgan stood frozen near the podium. Derek Walsh, somehow present despite internal orders to stay hidden, paled and took a step back. Malik didn't hesitate. He walked calmly to the front, stood beside Edward, and turned to the crowd. "Let me save you a statement," he said. Voice clear, tone steady. "Today, GlobeJet will terminate the following individuals for misconduct, racial discrimination, and corporate sabotage: Claire Morgan, Derek Walsh, Victor Lang, Elise Vaughn, Serena Holt, and Miles Carver." Claire snapped. "You have no authority here." But Malik raised a hand, and the room hushed. "On the contrary," he replied, "CyberPeak Strategic Consulting has maintained legal oversight of GlobeJet's compliance operations for 4 years, and as CEO of CyberPeak, I just exercised our emergency clause." Gasps rippled across the room. Reporters looked at each other. Edward took one slow breath, then turned to Claire. "You're fired," he said. "Get out." Claire laughed nervously. "You can't be serious. You're taking his word over mine." Edward didn't blink. "It's not his word. It's the footage. It's the transcripts. It's the lawsuits already waiting. It's the stock we've lost. It's the sponsors gone. It's the regulators on line 1. Derek tried to edge toward the door, but Omar blocked it. Elise stepped forward, lips tight. "This is outrageous. We're going to court." "You'll have that chance," Malik replied. "After the DOJ finishes reviewing your role in suppressing a federal whistleblower." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a flash drive, and held it up. Every message, every payment, every conversation, stored, time-stamped, verified. Victor's face appeared on a monitor. Someone had patched in the yacht call. His voice was strained. "Look, I didn't authorize. You financed the scheme." Malik interrupted, and Serena broadcast it. The screen behind them lit up again, this time, with a split view. On one side, Serena's TikTok clip, the jeering, the wine stain, the laughter. On the other, CNN's coverage of Malik's quiet walk through the terminal, the quotes from civil rights attorneys, the headlines piling up. Edward turned to the audience. "Effective immediately. GlobeJet severs all ties with the above individuals. Our board has accepted the full oversight measures proposed by CyberPeak. We apologize to Mr. Jackson and to every customer who witnessed this." Malik wasn't done. He stepped to the podium. "My name is Malik D. Jackson. I'm not just a passenger. I'm a founder, a legal analyst, and the lead architect of your entire compliance structure." He looked directly into the cameras. They didn't just see a man they didn't like. They saw a threat to the system they thought was theirs. They tried to humiliate me. What they did instead was reveal themselves. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Jackson, did you anticipate this? Are you pressing charges? What happens next?" Malik nodded toward a woman emerging from the crowd. Rachel Lynn, CNN's top aviation correspondent, walked forward with a microphone. "Mr. Jackson," she said calmly, "we've just confirmed that the Department of Transportation is launching a full civil rights investigation into GlobeJet's past 10 years of incident reports. You started a fire. What are you hoping to build from the ashes?" Malik smiled for the first time. "Equity. Real equity. Not slogans, not pledges. enforcement, standards, and training that doesn't end with a PowerPoint slide, Rachel pressed. Do you believe they've learned anything today? I don't care if they have, he said. I care that they never have the chance to repeat it. The room applauded, not out of obligation, but from shock turned into clarity. Edward approached, hand outstretched. Malik looked at it, then at the cameras. He didn't shake it. He turned to the crowd and said, Tomorrow begins something new. Behind him, the former leadership filed out, disgraced, disgruntled, and in some cases, quietly crying. Serena sobbed into her phone, watching her follower count evaporate. Elise made calls no one picked up. Victor vanished from the yacht feed. Miles, shoulders slumped, walked into a future with no firm left to call home. And in their place, a new narrative was born. One that Malik now owned completely. 2 weeks later, the Globejet logo looked different. It wasn't the color or the font. It was the feeling. The brand that once symbolized elite arrogance now carried the weight of accountability. And standing behind that shift was Malik Jackson. In a sunlit boardroom high above the terminal he was once dragged from. Malik introduced Equity Flight, a comprehensive initiative to rebuild Globejet from the inside out. This isn't a press stunt, he said to a full room of executives, staff, and media partners. It's a binding commitment. Mandatory anti-bias training, quarterly audits, anonymous passenger reporting, departmental reviews tied to equity metrics, and if any department fails 2 cycles in a row, its leadership is replaced. No one laughed. No one doubted. His presence left no room for shortcuts. Tanya Brooks, now appointed head of in-flight equity programs, stepped forward next, outlining a 12-step certification process for all cabin crew, grounded in lived experience and reviewed by independent watchdogs. Omar Reza led the ground operations overhaul. Every employee would be retrained, regardless of title. Respect, he said, standing at the podium in his new Navy blazer, is not a luxury upgrade, it's standard issue. The room applauded. Customers noticed. Within days, bookings rebounded. Within 2 weeks, trust started returning. A TikTok clip of a Globejet flight attendant apologizing to an elderly black woman for a delayed seat change and offering her a handwritten thank you went viral for the right reasons. Jamal Carter, now Director of Digital Strategy, curated these moments carefully, flooding the internet with stories of change, humility, and reform. The very platforms that once condemned Globejet now carried its revival, powered by transparency. Zoe Kim coordinated with the legal department to codify the entire equity flight framework into policy, making it publicly accessible. We don't want passengers to wonder if we'll do the right thing, she said. We want them to know exactly how we'll be held accountable when we don't. But Malik wasn't finished. At the year-end aviation summit in Washington, D.C., he walked onto the main stage with a folder tucked beneath his arm. Executives from Delta, United, Emirates, and dozens more sat in the audience, waiting to hear the man whose actions had cost one airline 40% of its value in 3 hours. Malik didn't speak in fury, he spoke with clarity. Equity flight isn't a Globejet policy. It's a global standard. He held up the folder. This is SkyFair. The room leaned in. SkyFair is a legal framework that evaluates airlines on 5 pillars: hiring transparency, passenger treatment, language use, internal complaint response, and disciplinary action. Every pillar has a threshold. You meet it. You qualify. You don't. We file a civil rights petition and inform your top investors. A few gasps. A few smirks. He continued. We've already signed 8 airlines. SkyFair audits begin in 60 days. The reports will be public. Denial isn't a strategy anymore. Not in this era, someone from the back called out. And what gives you the right to do this? Malik looked up. Because I built the tools. because I lived the problem, and because every regulator in this country just saw what happens when no one steps in. The press ate it up. News outlets ran headlines like, "From Passenger to Power Broker, How One Man Redefined Aviation Ethics." Civil rights groups hailed Skyfair as a breakthrough. Airlines scrambled, not to avoid it, but to be first to sign. No company wanted to be the next Globejet. And those who tried to resist, they quickly found their inboxes full of subpoenas and boycott threats. In less than a month, Malik had taken a humiliation meant to break him and turned it into a global compliance revolution. And still, he kept his tone measured, never gloating, never rushing. "This isn't punishment," he said quietly in an interview. "It's architecture. I'm not here to tear down the industry. I'm here to rebuild it, stronger, cleaner, and fair." Behind him, the Skyfair logo now lit up terminals in 4 continents. His name no longer trended because of a scandal. It trended because he refused to let the world forget how easily dignity could be denied and how swiftly it could be restored. Justice doesn't always come loud, but this time, it rang like a bell across industries, headlines, and boardrooms. In the months following the Skyfair launch, the fallouts were swift, unforgiving, and absolute. Victor Lang, once seen as untouchable in investment circles, watched his empire bleed. His board ousted him, sponsors fled, and internal audits uncovered years of shadow funding tied to smear campaigns like the one against Malik. He resigned in silence. Serena Holt, whose smug smile once glowed behind viral mockery, found her following vanish overnight. The platforms she abused for clicks now rejected her brand outright. Sponsors dropped her in waves. Apology videos followed, but the comment sections remained brutal. Too late. One viewer wrote, "You helped ruin a man's dignity for likes." Elise Vaughn, stripped of her legal license, sat before ethics committees. Her emails read aloud as evidence of her role in manipulating legal boundaries to intimidate a man she barely knew. The gavel came down hard, disbarred. Miles Carver filed for bankruptcy after multiple clients severed ties, citing his unethical participation in the incident. And Claire Morgan, she faded from the public eye entirely, her name now synonymous with abuse of power. No press wanted her opinion. No airline would hire her again. Derek Walsh tried to sue for wrongful termination. He lost. The court showed him the video he forgot was rolling frame by frame, word by word. It was undeniable. His arrogance, his prejudice, his downfall. And yet, for all the destruction, Malik Jackson refused to gloat. Justice isn't vengeance. He said one morning on NPR, "It's correction. It's repair." That belief became the foundation of something even larger than Skyfair. He called it Sky Hope, a nonprofit initiative built to support victims of discrimination in air travel and transit industries. The program offered legal resources, mental health services, and financial aid to those wrongfully profiled or mistreated on the basis of race, disability, appearance, or background. But it wasn't just reactive. Sky Hope partnered with major airlines, providing pro bono training modules, bias simulations, and survivor-led panels to reshape internal cultures. "We don't just hold them accountable," Malik said at the launch event. "We give them the tools to change. No more excuses." The first employee hired to lead a Sky Hope regional program, Tanya Brooks, the same flight attendant who had slipped Malik that folded napkin in the middle of chaos. She now trained flight crews on equity-centered service nationwide. "Back then, I just did what I thought was right," she said, voice calm but firm. "Now, I get to help others see that doing what's right shouldn't be rare." Beside her, Omar Reza led Sky Hope's airport outreach teams, focusing on ground staff often overlooked in equity efforts. His message was simple: Power starts where you stand, and it stands taller when it protects others. GlobeJet, now fully certified under Skyfair, reported its highest customer trust rating in history. Travelers of all backgrounds cited feeling seen, safe, and respected. Malik had declined a formal executive title with the airline, choosing instead to remain as external compliance head. "This isn't about ownership," he said. "It's about stewardship. And I'm just getting started." The final twist, though, came quietly during a panel discussion at Columbia University, where Malik had once been denied a speaker slot as a student for being too combative. This time, he was the keynote guest, in front of hundreds of future lawyers, policymakers, and founders. He played a short clip, no longer than 10 seconds. Derek Walsh's voice, sneering, "You don't belong here." Then Malik looked out over the auditorium and said, "That's what they told me. But I stayed. I stood up. And now, I'm telling you, if they ever say that to you, record it, confront it, share it. Because what we don't speak about, we repeat. And what we face, we change." The crowd rose to their feet, and in that moment, the shame they'd tried to drown him in became the light that guided thousands forward. Malik's story wasn't just about a man getting justice. It was about turning pain into power, silence into law, and humiliation into a movement. And now, the skies were different. If you've ever faced injustice or stood up for someone who did, this story is for you. Share it, subscribe for more, and leave a comment below, because dignity belongs to everyone, and silence changes nothing.